For this video, I have allowed my cat Mary Wollstonecraft to explore the shelves behind me while I talk. This was probably a really bad idea, but we're in it now. This stack of books behind me is what I'm planning on reading in September, and it is really heavy. The thumbnail for this video probably looks terrible because I could not actually hold the damn thing. But along with being really heavy, this stack is also going to be really fun. And it holds a secret to how I make my videos, which I'm just gonna tell you now. Because of how I schedule the filming of my videos, I've actually already read 2 of these books and finished half of 2 others as well. I filmed my wrap-up video for August like a week before August actually ended, and now I have to film this. My end of month and start of next month videos come out one after the other, and I usually film them on the same day or consecutive days. This time I didn't because of how I schedule things in my brain. So these videos are being filmed a week apart, but they'll come out 2 days apart. That doesn't make sense for a reading schedule, and yet here we are. I have to follow how my brain works rather than how a calendar works. And that means in this time, I've had time to read 2 full and 2 halves of 2 other books. And I have a way around all of this. I figured it out. And in case you're getting bored, let's just jump in. Here's what I'm going to read in September. Now that we are in spooky season, now that we are in autumn, I'm very excited. Fun books here, let's go. Let's start with the biggest book on the stack. This is Exodus by Peter F. Hamilton. It's the first book in a planned duology called The Archimedes Engine. I've never read Peter F. Hamilton before, but his publisher sent me this. I'm very grateful, but it is 900 pages long and it's only half the story. I'm a little bit nervous. The book comes out on the 19th of September, at least here in the UK. And I've never read Hamilton before. I know he's a legend of science fiction, and I'm also aware this is the only review copy I have for September, so I really should read it. I'm just a little nervous because it's 900 pages long. This thing is absolutely colossal. And this is what it's about. In a past age, humanity fled a dying Earth. Carrying the planet's survivors, massive ark ships searched the galaxy for a new home. One fleet found Centauri, a dense cluster of stars teeming with habitable planets. Thousands of years later, Centauri flourishes. The original settlers evolved into advanced beings known as Celestials, and their great houses now rule vast star systems. As they vie for supremacy, Earth's ark ships continue to arrive, and humans must serve these repressive masters or face almost certain death in uninhabited space. But is there a better life beyond the Empire? Finn is a Centauri-born human and yearns for a brighter future. So when a final ark ship arrives, Finn seizes the chance to become a traveller. These heroes explore the vast unknowns of distant space, dedicated to humanity's survival, and they hope one day to find freedom. It sounds fantastic. It sounds like a wonderful sci-fi epic, and I've been reading a lot of sci-fi and fantasy right now. You'll find a lot of sci-fi and fantasy on this list, so the book has come around at the perfect time. I just wish it wasn't so big. 900 pages and only half the story? I'll do my best. So I literally just had to stop the video because I got some post, and I thought, oh, imagine if the post is a book and the book comes out in September. That would be a fun twist. It was a book. It comes out in January. Never mind. We can move. Let's touch briefly on the 2 books that I've already read for this month, but I'm saving them for an upcoming video, so I'm not going to say much. This is Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White. If you don't know the name, Andrew Joseph White is a transgender YA horror writer, and this is his 3rd book. His first novel, Hell Followed With Us, was a massive success. It's a very queer post-apocalyptic hellscape cult novel. People love it, I love it, it's great, but it's actually my 3rd favourite of his. Like, all 3 of his books are bangers, but that is now bottom of my list. His 2nd book was The Spirit Bares Its Teeth, which I really love. That's still my favourite of his. And so now Compound Fracture sits in the middle. The Spirit Bares Its Teeth was a piece of historical fiction, but but still horror. And Compound Fracture is very much about working class struggles and the ways in which cycles of violence are inherited through generations. In that way, it really reminds me of Brickmakers by Selva Almada. It's set in West Virginia, and it tells the story of a small and all but forgotten mining community with two families who have basically been at war for generations. The novel is in part about the idea of working class traitorship, about police corruption and brutality, about justice and vengeance, and as I said, cycles of violence. And our protagonist is also a young trans guy who's just come out, and so he also has to deal with the fallout of his parents reacting to him being happy and true to himself. Okay, I just had to kick my cat out because I really thought I could handle her rummaging around in here, but it's actually too stressful, so she's out. Where was I? Compound Fracture. Okay, last thing I'll say, this book hit me particularly hard because as a trans woman who's been out for like 2 years at this point, and whose parents are so awkward they just ignore the fact that I'm trans, just continue to use the wrong name and pronouns for me as if I don't look and sound like this. So this hit me really hard because, yeah, I know the struggle. The other book that I'm planning to read in September that I've actually already read in September but don't tell anyone is Bloom by Delilah S. Dawson. This thing's only 200 pages long. I read it very, very quickly because it's incredibly Moorish. I said in a recent video that I'm kind of done with horror, and turns out I'm not. I can't leave horror alone. I've just been overdoing it. I've had too much horror and it was starting to just bring my mood down. So I'm gonna microdose on horror a little bit at a time, especially because it's spooky season now and I can't not. And Bloom was a great way to do that because, as I said, it's short, but also it starts off as a sapphic romance. Well, it begins as a romance and then it spirals. It steadily descends into a Wuthering Heights-esque toxic romance before the horror reveals itself in the second half. But it also doesn't really reveal itself. It continues to be tense and paranoid and frightening, but without anything really happening. You just feel on edge all the way through the second half because you know something's wrong, you know there are secrets, and you start to wonder what those secrets might be, and maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. I was right, it's not hard to tell, but you're still waiting for the truth to come out, and you still want to be wrong, but you're probably not. Sapphic romance turned terrifying horror. Amazing book. Gonna talk about it more in an upcoming video. At the time of making this video, I am also halfway through Ava Reid's Lady Macbeth, and I'm honestly not gonna say a word about this, except that it is a feminist retelling of the story of Lady Macbeth from Shakespeare's Macbeth. If I start talking about it now, I won't stop because I'm halfway through, I have a lot of thoughts, so I'm just moving on. And the other book that I'm currently halfway through at the time of recording is Volume 2 of Chip Starsky's run on Batman. This is a fantastic comic book. I haven't enjoyed Batman this much in years, partly because I've been out of the loop and I haven't been reading comics for quite a while, but also because it's just that good. Starsky's an amazing artist and now he's turned his hand to being an amazing writer, and oh my goodness. At the end of Volume 1, Batman was killed by a machine that he created, but he wasn't killed, he was actually zapped into an alternate universe where Bruce Wayne is dead and Batman never existed at all, and we have to get to grips with that Gotham, and he needs to find a way to escape. That's all I'll say. Now on to the books that I genuinely haven't read yet, and I am going to be reading in September, probably. Well, this one definitely, and you'll see why. This is Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach. You're probably familiar with Annihilation. You've either read the book or maybe seen Alex Garland's film adaptation, or you watched a video I did on it a while ago. This is Absolution, the upcoming 4th book in the Southern Reach, which is no longer a trilogy. This book comes out in November, and Fourth Estate Books sent me this review copy. I am very, very excited and very, very grateful. It seems like it was hard to get hold of this. And given how I'd only read Annihilation Annihilation up until this point, I went out and I got myself the 10th anniversary trilogy with these amazing, gorgeous, shiny new covers. I couldn't resist. These books are all so stunning. The old covers were really, really boring, at least here in the UK. These are what it should have been all along. Look at these things, they're amazing. Not only that, but Jeff Vandermeer is going to be in the UK in November, and I might have something cool to announce soon with regards to that. And so this month I'm going to read the second book in the Southern Reach, Acceptance. And my contingency for the fact that I've already read nearly 3 books from this pile is that maybe I'll also read the third book as well. This is Authority. We'll see how we go. You may have also spotted at the beginning of the video or in the thumbnail, The Poppy War. The Poppy War was the debut novel by R.F. Kuang, and it was then quickly followed by 2 more books making a fantasy trilogy. Now, I am a huge fan of R.F. Kuang, thanks to Yellowface and Babel. However, I read The Poppy War several years ago when it first came out, and I didn't love it. I thought it was only okay. It was an average piece of fantasy to me. But now that I get R.F. Kuang, now that I appreciate her genius, and I really do think it's genius, Yellowface and Babel are 2 of my favorite books ever written. Genuinely, I love them so much. I've decided to reread The Poppy War and the other 2 books in the trilogy. So I picked up this absolutely gorgeous box set of the trilogy. I really can't wait to read this thing. I'm going to reread The Poppy War this month and then see how we go from there. The other part of my contingency plan, which is such a weird thing to have for a month of reading some books, but I'm dramatic, I'm a lot, is a trilogy of books that I was sent by the author themselves. I am so grateful to Stark Holburn for sending me these. Stark Holburn is a science fiction author based in Bristol, where I used to live. I love Bristol to bits, amazing city. And they got their publisher to send me their entire trilogy. And that's because the 3rd book in the trilogy, Ninth Life, has just come out. So this month I'm gonna start with Ten Low. It's not particularly long, so if I rip through this, maybe I'll start the 2nd book in the trilogy as well. We'll see how we go. If, like me, you've never read these books before, here's what they're about. Ten Low is eking out a living at the universe's edge. An ex-medic, ex-con, desperate to escape her memories of the war, she still hasn't learned that no good deed goes unpunished. Attempting to atone for her sins, she pulls a teenage girl from a crashed life craft. But Gabriella Oritz is no ordinary girl. She is a genetically engineered super soldier and decorated general, part of the army that kept Ten prisoner. Worse, Ten realizes the crash was an assassination attempt and that someone wants Oritz dead. To get the general off-world, they must cross the moon's lawless wastes, face military hit squads, savage bandits, organ sharks, and good old-fashioned treachery. But as they race to safety, something else waits in the darkness. Something ancient and patient. Something that knows exactly who she is and what she is really running from. I cannot wait for this. I am so excited. A really fun, rip-roaring, politically charged, science fiction, fantastical adventure with 2 sequels that I already have ready to go. Yeah, this is going to be fun. And because we're finally in autumn, and when it comes to autumn, you need to try and balance cozy, warming, soothing autumn vibes with horror and terror and spooky season vibes, I picked up The Honey Witch by Sydney J. Shields. As far as I know, this book is quite a lot of things. It is a sapphic, cozy, romantasy book, but it's also historical fiction. Let's read the blurb. The Honey Witch is cursed to never find true love. But when she meets a woman who doesn't believe in magic, she dares to hope for more. Marigold Claude has always preferred the company of meadow spirits to the suitors who've tried to woo her. So when her grandmother whisks her away to the tiny isle of Innisfree with an offer to train her as the next Honey Witch, she accepts immediately. But her newfound magic and independence come with a price. No one can fall in love with the Honey Witch. When Lottie Burke, a notoriously grumpy skeptic who doesn't believe in magic, shows up at her doorstep, Marigold can't help resist the challenge to prove to her that magic is real, even at the risk of losing her home and her heart. Cozy sapphic romantasy for autumn? I think so. And finally, we have The Cautious Traveller's Guide to the Wasteland. This is, as far as I understand it, a work of fantasy and historical fiction that is set entirely aboard the Trans-Siberian Express around the turn of the 20th century. Now, Sarah Brooks is a professor of East Asian Studies at the University of Leeds, and she also runs the Leeds Center for New Chinese Writing. As far as I know, East Asian languages and linguistics are quite popular courses at Leeds University. My friend Arthur, who translated Solo Dance by Lee Kotomi, he studied at the University of Leeds studying Japanese. And I'm pretty sure the Center for New Chinese Writing is quite a big deal. So Sarah Brooks really knows her Chinese history and linguistics. And here's what the book's about. It is the end of the 19th century, and the world is awash with marvels. There is nothing so marvelous as the wasteland, a terrain of terrible miracles that lies between Beijing and Moscow. Nothing touches the wasteland except the great Trans-Siberian Express, an impenetrable train built to carry cargo across continents, but which now transports any passenger who dares. Onto the platform steps a curious cast of characters. Maria, a grieving woman with a borrowed name, Wei Wei, a famous child born on the train, and Henry Gray, a disgraced naturalist. But there are whispers that the train isn't safe. As secrets and stories begin to unravel, the passengers and crew must survive their journey together, even as something uncontrollable seems to be breaking in. This sounds wonderful. An historical, fantastical adventure set entirely on the Trans-Siberian Express? Absolutely, cannot wait. I picked this up at Foyles in London while I was visiting a few weeks ago, and I'm finally ready to dig in. There you go, those are some books that I've sneakily already read, a bunch of other books that I'm going to read in September, and also a few sequels in case I get through this stack. Last month I managed to stick very diligently to everything that I was going to read. Will I do the same this month? Let's find out. If you enjoyed this, you can support me on Patreon. My patrons are amazing and I live entirely off my Patreon, so I would really, really appreciate your support. Subscribe for books.